Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Today we have with us Clinton Young. He is an international speaker and a speaking expert. This is going to be a great conversation because we're going to talk about a lot of my favorite topics: limiting beliefs, reaching your full potential, really reaching in and pulling out your unique genius. So first and foremost, Clinton, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Alicia. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Let's talk about your business. So you're doing some really, really cool stuff. So tell us about what you are doing.
All right. So as you mentioned, I'm an international keynote speaker. So I deliver my keynote speech, Reigniting Your Human Spirit. I've been very fortunate to deliver that all around the world in a lot of different countries. And I just love inspiring people to really unlock their full potential. But first, in order to do that, to really break through those limiting beliefs and the challenges and the fears and the doubt that we all have, right? To really enable that confidence and courage. But beyond speaking myself, I actually work with purpose-driven entrepreneurs that are, really wanting to make a massive difference in their life, in the world, in their business. And a lot of them have a burning desire, this message inside of them, this calling, where they don't even, a lot of times they don't even know where it comes from, but it's this calling that they just feel like they need to be on a stage and they need to be impacting people with their voice. And that's what I do as a coach for aspiring world-class speakers, is to really help them get that voice out of them, to really tap into their vulnerability, their authenticity, and to develop the world-class speaking skills to be able to impact a room and impact people, whether it's one-on-one or 1 to 1,000. So that's
Awesome.
what I'm passionate about.
Awesome. I love that. And you can feel the passion there, and you're out there, you're doing it. So you're not just giving lip service to it. You are really walking your talk.
Yeah. I like to call myself more of a mentor coach because, not that there's anything wrong with being a coach. I am a coach myself. You're a coach. I don't know if you call yourself a coach, but you're a coach as well. You coach people, right? And different people have different titles, but ultimately, I believe we're both mentors because when you've been there, done that, and you're doing it now, you can actually coach at a much deeper level. And it's really mentorship. It's part mentorship, part coaching. Whereas anyone can go out and just get a coach, throw up a coach shingle and get a certification or whatever in their coaching, but they might not have the actual experience. So I really love that I'm doing it, like you said, and I'm able to really give a much deeper level of insight for folks to really grow faster. And that's what I'm all about, is accelerating the path to becoming world-class. How do we accelerate that path? And for the listeners and the viewers today, I'm going to be giving an amazing gift at the end we'll talk about later for you to be able to accelerate your path and your journey to becoming world-class.
Awesome. I'm all about acceleration.
Little teaser. Yes.
No, it's so true. And I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you just said. And it's kind of funny because, my business consultant, she always says, you don't want to box yourself in as the coach, even though in many cases we are doing coaching with our clients. And because I've been doing this for so long, oftentimes I do refer to myself as a mentor or an inner game strategist or something that removes that kind of negative stigma that a lot of people have started to accumulate over this whole coaching thing. And I work with a lot of coaches. I have some fantastic clients who are they're teaching coaches. They have certification programs and they have really high standards. And there's just a little bit of a distinction, I think, between somebody who is feeling that calling that you've referenced and they'll dabble. Right. So they'll get a certification and they'll hang up their shingle, but they're not really doing their own inner work to get to that next level.
Right.
And so you can't give what you don't have. And if you're not doing your inner work, if you're not taking that calling, that passion and getting yourself clear enough to really own it, to really like step into it fully, you're doing a huge disservice to your clients.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that you can't still be valuable for certain, but I'm hoping that, anybody who is listening to this conversation is recognizing if they're playing small game with themselves, it's time to knock it the hell off and step into your full greatness, because that's when you really have a significant impact in the world and on people's lives.
100%.
So let's talk a bit about your people and what you do with your we'll call them clients, even if they're coming into like a group setting and they're learning how to get out there as a speaker. What are you seeing? Like, what's the mindset that they're coming in with, and what's the mindset that they're leaving with?
I love that question, because so many entrepreneurs, they even people that are already speaking, they don't believe that they can actually speak at a level that is going to really, really make a massive difference. They don't believe that it's in their reach. And when I'm able to show them, especially people that come in and they maybe haven't even spoken that much, they think it's like this thing that has to take them 10 years. Don't get me wrong. You have to get the reps. I'm a huge on sports analogies. I'm not even a huge sports guy. I've played sports, but I'm a huge on sports analogies because it's very, very relevant. I'd love to share with you really quickly what I mean by world class, because my brand is all centered around becoming world class. And I want to make sure people understand we're on the same page, and it'll really lend itself to the question that you just asked. And I know a lot of your viewers and listeners out there are people that want to grow their business. They want to grow themselves, and they might even have this burning desire to make an impact, and they maybe don't know where to start. So I think this will help. Okay. So what do I mean by world class? A lot of people think that I mean that you want to become the next Lisa Nichols or the next Les Brown or Tony Robbins, or insert your favorite motivational speaker or person who speaks on a grand scale all around the world. And that's not necessarily what I mean. I can definitely help people if they want to become, somebody who's really well known. They want to speak all around the world, and they want to get paid $10,000 a speech as a keynote speaker, right? To a very specific type of speaker. I can help people do that if that's what they want to do. But that's not what I mean by world class. What I mean by world class is every time we speak, and if people out there are people that are watching and listening, can probably feel this or put themselves in a scenario where they have felt this way, where you're speaking, but you're not really connecting to the audience, right? You see, I, like you, we have somewhat similar backgrounds. I'll share mine. It's definitely different. You have a lot of extraordinary expertise and training in certain areas. I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in organizational psychology. And I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last time. I'm just kidding. I didn't say that. But I've been geeking out on neuroscience for like the last 10, 15, 20 years as well. So I'm not the foremost expert in the world, but I know more than the average person. So I just like to say a little bit about that, because I like to weave in a lot of psychological things and just for a little bit of credibility there. But when we're speaking, back to my story, when you're speaking, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's 1 to 500 or 50, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's live, there is this unconscious barrier that is in the back of our minds, and it's also in the minds of the people that we're speaking to. And what happens is it keeps us from being fully connected. It's like a 40% barrier, totally anecdotal numbers I'm giving you right now, by the way, but it's like a 40% barrier, and it's blocking us from truly being connected at the heart. And what happens is, as speakers or as entrepreneurs who speak, we oftentimes we want to make sure we say things right, and we want to make sure that, do we look right? Are we saying the right thing? Or are they going to really listen to what I have to say? And we're all up in our head. Or we memorize our speech. Don't ever do that. It's like the cardinal sin. Don't ever memorize your speech, because it keeps you in your head and it keeps you out of your heart. So what do I mean by world class? What I mean by becoming world class is learning how to identify that unconscious barrier in your own mind, in your own makeup, and learning how to identify it in your audience, and learning how to speak to what I like to call the collective pain in the room. You want to speak to the collective pain in that room so that you speak authentically, you speak vulnerably, and this is what I teach people how to do, and you speak with world-class precision And you do it in a way where you speak from the heart directly to the heart and soul of that audience. And that is what I mean by world class. And I believe that anyone that's listening or watching that truly wants to make the level of impact that you were born to make, that your purpose is you're on this earth to make, you have to become a world-class speaker in order to reach that level. Anyone could be a talking head, and you can be an amazing talking head, and you can even get great results, but you'll never reach your full potential, your full impact, and your full income, actually, unless and until you learn how to dissolve that barrier and speak to the heart and soul of your audience. So that's what I mean by world class. And when people come to me, they a lot of times don't get that distinction. They don't see it at that level, but when they see it, and then they start putting in the reps, right? You got to put in the reps and you got to gain awareness first. And then of course I guide them and correct and guide and correct when they're getting the reps. And what you see happen is it's almost like a pyramid. If you're looking at this or just visualizing a pyramid, on the bottom, it's awareness. And you get a deeper level of awareness. And I've got a whole accelerated awareness model that perhaps we'll dig into a little bit, maybe not. But when we get awareness and we get that guidance and we get the correction from your coach and mentor, and we're going out and we're getting the reps, all of a sudden you have more courage to go out and get more reps. And as you do that, you go up the pyramid and then you get more confidence. And a lot of people think, oh, now I'm world class. No, you're not. You just go back down to now a deeper level of awareness. You go out and get more reps, and it's awareness, courage, confidence, awareness, courage, confidence, awareness, courage, confidence. And for the other side, it's repetitions, guidance, correction, repetitions, guidance, correction, repetitions, guidance, correction. And it's not rocket science. It's not sexy, but it works. It's principle-based acceleration through the process, because you can't skip steps, but you can accelerate yourself on the pathway to becoming great, to becoming world-class.
Everything you just shared is touching on basic fundamental principles that really are applicable to mastery in any area of life.
Yeah.
So the piece about you can't skip steps. And mastery does come from experience. And that means course correcting and refining and building upon the foundation that you've already established.
Yeah.
So when you're working with these people, they already have some degree of clarity. They know what they're being called to do. They know that they help in a certain way. They're passionate, they're inspired, they have certain innate inborn drives and talents that they've then refined. You're not teaching them how to be a specific thing. They already are the thing. You're teaching them how to put their thing out there in a big way and have a positive impact on people's lives.
Yes, 100%. And two things I want to share about what you just mentioned. First thing is that the reason why what I do works is well, first of all, I care. I'm really good at what I do, but it's principle based. You just nailed it. It's principle based. And that could be a slippery slope because a lot of people can discount principles because they're so simple. Principles are not sexy. Principles are simple, but they work. Right? But there's this beautiful quote by, some people say it's Lao Tzu, some people say it's Stephen Covey, and it's this: it's to know and not to do is not to know. Right?
It's a quote I use. Yes,
it's to do is not to know. Right? Yes. So that's why I wear this. Anytime you hear yourself saying, "I know that," whether you're in a class or a coaching session with Alicia or with me or with one of your coaches, and you hear yourself saying, or you're in a seminar or presentation, you hear yourself saying, "Oh, I already know this," go like that, because bull crap. You do not know this unless you're actually doing it every single day and it's part of your process. You don't really know it, because to know and not to do is not to know. So that's the first thing that I wanted to share. And then you were sharing about, you said something really good. I wanted to add something else to it. Dang it. What were you just saying? You were saying something really good.
Wasn't it all good? Come on.
It's all amazing. It'll come back to me, I'm sure.
Well, let me just piggyback off of that quote, because it's such a valuable quote. And I think a lot of people don't really understand it.
Yeah.
We know a lot of things intellectually, but if you haven't embodied it,
Mm-hmm.
you don't really know it. Now, going back to your love for using sports analogies, I'm going to use one here. Okay. So I'm not a big sports person, but I too appreciate sports analogies because so many people can relate to them. Even if you're not into sports, most of us have gone through school and we had to learn certain things. We had to learn how to play softball. We had to learn how to play soccer. Even if we didn't become very proficient at it, we at least were able to learn some of those basic fundamental principles. Now, this is really what we're talking about here is you can conceptually understand how to play baseball, but you'll notice that the greatest players, they are mastering those basics. And they don't just stop practicing the basics once they've, quote, mastered them. They keep practicing the basics because that's the foundation for success. So when we want to achieve anything in life, we have to understand you've got to really master those basics. And one of the things that I work with my clients with is understanding how the universe works, understanding universal laws and principles. And it always comes back to the basics. When my clients are bumping up against their stuff, I'm always asking them the same questions over and over and over and over again, because we've got to really drive it in. Friend, you know exactly what to do. You're not doing it. I've already taught you that. Let's dive back in. Let's use those fundamental principles again. And wham, just like that, guess what happens? It shifts the stuckness, right? They break out of that. And they've had that tool this entire time. They're on the mental hamster wheel running like hell and they're not getting anywhere. They, quote, knew what to do, but they didn't really know what to do because they hadn't mastered it yet.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And I remembered what I was going to say earlier. You were talking about how, what I was sharing was really the basic building blocks of everything. And you also shared that I'm not teaching people like necessarily who they are or why they, what they want to speak about, but I am helping them get clarity. And I always say that it's the ABCs of speaking, right? And speaking creates three things. It creates three things. And the first one is it creates awareness. The more you speak, the more awareness that you have. We've talked a little bit about that. And that's part of my accelerated awareness model, but we probably won't dive into that. The next thing that it creates is it creates clarity. It does. When you speak, clarity happens. When you speak, clarity happens. Especially if you're like a verbal processor like me, I actually do my best thinking when I'm in communication with people. Now, not everybody's like that, but I still believe, and I've found with really all of my clients, that when you speak, clarity happens. Every time you speak and deliver a message, you see the audience respond a certain way, whether you're on Zoom or whether you're live, and you're going to get more feedback, right? You're going to get more feedback, and you're going to realize, wow, I really felt great. You want to notice how you feel when you're speaking. I felt amazing when I started speaking about this. And you can tell I feel really good right now too, because I'm speaking really fast. I'm really excited. I'm really passionate about this stuff. So notice those things, because when you're speaking, you'll have a plan to speak in one direction, and all of a sudden you'll get an inspiration and you'll start going in another direction perhaps. And you really need to listen to that, because that happened for a reason. Right? So you'll get more and more clarity the more you speak. And the last thing I love to say is when you speak, business happens. When you speak, business happens, right? Every time I speak, business happens. It's not always 100% direct business, but when I speak, business happens. And when you speak, business happens. So I do, I was coming back to actually the thing that you had said. So I don't necessarily help them discover newly everything about what they want to speak about. But one of the number one questions I ask, and it's the first pillar in my model to becoming world class, is why do you feel called to speak? Why do you feel called to speak? because I feel like anyone can just have an idea, go out and create a speech around it. But if it's truly not why you feel called to speak, then we're not getting down to the roots of it. And it won't be as sustainable. It won't be as inspiring, as fulfilling, or as successful as if we do dig deep, do the inner work, get the internal reps before we go out and get the external reps. We get the internal reps and really go through some of the questions. And one of the pivotal questions, and the very first one I asked from the very beginning of my training all the way through my 10-week model, literally I asked that question about 100 times. Why do you feel called to speak? And on week 10, people have a more distinguished, tighter answer than they had that first week. Right? It's a continual evolutionary process. And it's not even over after 10 weeks. I still ask myself that question. Why do I feel called to speak? Because that's the gasoline. That's the fuel that keeps me going. And that's what brings the sense of purity and authenticity for the whole message, is when you really get to why you feel called to speak.
I love that. That's gold, because you infuse so much energy into not only what you're saying, but just who you're being, and why you're doing it that'll be the difference between whether or not you're going to push through the challenges and the obstacles and the adversity, or if you're going to give up.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's talk a little bit about your mindset journey. So I'm sure you didn't just fall into this and everything was rainbows and butterflies. So you don't have to go through the whole backstory, but I'm curious, do you have something that you can share with us about maybe overcoming one of your own mindset issues to get to where you are today?
Yeah, and I'm gonna do my best to not go too deep into this, but I'll share. When I started speaking in 2005 to some pretty decent sized audiences, but I've spoke before that, but it was more like I was the leader in the blank club or whatever, so I would just speak by default. But I started speaking in around 2005, and I didn't really know what I was doing. In fact, I didn't even know that I could speak, but I had a mentor. And this is one thing that it's so powerful to surround yourself with people like Alicia and other mentors and people that are maybe have gone further in a certain area of life that you want to go far in, because they'll see things in you that you don't always see in yourself. And one of my mentors, Justin Yates, he saw something in me around speaking. And before I even knew that it was there. So 2000, we're going to fast forward a little bit. I had a decent amount of success in the time with him. And then in 2008, I actually experienced a pretty massive, what most people would call financial failure, right? With the crash, the financial collapse. And I find myself really just feeling totally lost, totally confused. I was shattered. Like my confidence was shattered, like gone. And this is 6 months after I get married. Like, welcome to the team, honey, right? It was a rough, I'm still married though. Still, my wife is still with me. It's a rough time in my life. And it was a dark time in my life. And I remembered thinking back, like, why did I experience this financial failure? And I remembered that I bought these properties, and I remember I bought them all for the wrong reason. And I find myself at the microphone. Okay. I'm not delivering a speech by any stretch. I am lost. I'm in this seminar. Okay. Picture this. I'm in this seminar. There's like 200 people around. I'm at the microphone, and the seminar leader, his name is Chris. He looks right at me. He says, "Clinton, you're dead inside." And I was just like, oh, it was like right in my heart. It was like a stake to the heart. And it was in that moment that I realized that I needed to reignite my own human spirit. Like my spirit, if you think about a little pilot light under a gas stove, it flickers, it's always on. I feel like that's our soul. And for me, my light was almost out. Like it was just barely flickering. And I realized in that moment that I really needed to do something. I really needed to reignite my human spirit. And at that time, in that moment, I thought that I realized why I was so broken. I felt broken. And I thought it was because my intuition had failed me You see, because I'd always been someone who followed my intuition. And I know most people know what I mean by intuition, but just so we're all on the same page, my simple definition of it is simply, it's not a conscious reasoning. It's more of a logical reasoning. It's more of just a feeling. It's this feeling, get this feeling, this urge, this inspiration. And anytime I would have that, I would go and do it. And it always seemed to work out. It didn't always work out exactly how I thought it would, right? But it always seemed to work out, and everything seemed to always be perfect, even when it wasn't. So in that moment, I thought, well, why did my intuition let me buy these properties? Like, that's why I'm so broken, because my intuition failed me, and I need to find a way to fix my intuition, right? Like my intuition was the thing that was broken. And about a month later, I'm walking through the woods down in San Diego. I do a lot of walks, and one of my habits, I call them black sheep habits. One of the habits that I like to do is contemplation, and I do that with walks in nature. And I like to do that by myself. Sometimes I'll just walk on grass and take my shoes off and just hang out and chill. And really, it's kind of like a moving meditation, right? And so I was doing that day. And all of a sudden, it hits me like a Harry Potter lightning bolt, like right between my eyes. I'm like, oh my goodness, it wasn't my intuition that failed me. It was me that failed my intuition. Right? In that moment, I remembered back to literally my intuition saying things to me like, or showing me visuals of like, this is the wrong place to buy properties. These are the wrong people to buy properties. This is the wrong way to buy properties. They're doing it all for the wrong reasons. Like, so many messages. And I just pushed them all away. For whatever reason, I pushed them all away at the time, thinking I knew better. And so it wasn't my intuition that failed me. It was me that actually failed my intuition. And that's why I felt so broken, because that was like my construct for how the world worked, right? Intuition tells you to do something, you go and do it, and it works out. And all of a sudden, I fail my intuition, and I sort of broke that relationship, if you will, with my intuition. So after that, it was like a several year process of really digging into finding things that lit me up, what put me in a high vibration state, and going and doing those things and continually looking internally to discover like, what is the next thing that I need to let go of, and continually feeding my mind with positivity and amazing people around me, all the strategies you can think of to continue to up level my belief system in myself, in what's possible in the world, and ultimately was able to dig myself out of that hole and become the international speaker that I am today.
Awesome. Certainly not awesome that we have to experience trauma in order to have that catalyzing moment in life, but it is sort of one of those facts of life in many cases. It is the things that break us down the most that allow us to rise up greater than ever.
Yeah. And I remembered writing in my journal during that year, I wrote in my journal, I'm going through this for a reason, and I will be able to help people someday. This is long before I was ever a coach. I'll be able to help people someday by the mere fact of me going through this and finding my way through it. So, and now my speech is called Reigniting the Human Spirit, because I know I'm not the only one, especially in the time of COVID, right? I know I'm not the only one, and whether it's COVID or not COVID, or financial collapse or not, people experience failure. People experience loss. People experience fear, the subsequent fear and doubt that results from that. And that's why I'm so passionate about really enabling newly that confidence and that courage to reignite the human spirit, to relight that pilot light, if you will.
We could easily talk probably for hours.
I agree.
But since we don't have really any more time, I want to give you an opportunity to share with us that special little something that you alluded to earlier.
Awesome. And I would love to leave people with a final thought at the end as well. But I want to give a gift to everybody that for literally, let me back up. So I know that there's a lot of you out there that are intrigued by speaking. A lot of you are already speaking. A lot of you have businesses that are very successful. Maybe some of you are starting new businesses. Well, I know that many of you have this purpose, this drive to grow yourself and to grow your impact and your income and your influence and your mission or purpose-based. and you want to create an impact in the world. Well, I know that speaking, hands down, in my opinion, it's the number one way to grow your business. It's the number one great way to grow your impact. It's the number one great way to grow your influence. And so I want to give to you my top 7 world-class speaker secrets. Okay. These are some of the secrets that I've learned from literally spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on stages all around the world speaking, and also from hiring some of the very best speakers on the planet to be my mentors and my coaches. I'm a firm believer in always having a coach, always having a mentor, and I've hired some of the best. National Speaker Association Hall of Fame speakers. Some of them are my coaches. I'm very fortunate to have that. So I want to give to you the top 7 principles, right? These are the principles that they work, right? They're not sexy, but they work. Some of them are actually pretty sexy. And when you implement these, you will be able to accelerate yourself on the pathway to becoming world-class. And you can get all 7 of these, plus there's a bonus 8th at worldclassspeakersecrets.com. That's worldclassspeakersecrets.com. You can download all those for free, get connected with me. I'll also share with you an opportunity to join my speaker posse, which is a free Facebook group with speakers from all around the world in it. So check that out. And for those of you who are really serious, you'll have an opportunity to potentially have a one-on-one conversation with me after you download the free gift. And if you are serious about having a coach, having a mentor, and you're ready to have that conversation, then definitely go ahead and schedule that as well.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm going to let you leave us with a closing thought. Okay. And I just have to say a quick thank you to our listeners for joining us today. Make sure you subscribe if you have not already. As you can see, I mean, we're bringing in like the best of the best here. We've got some really, really high quality people and some really high quality content. So with that, Clinton, I really do want to thank you as well. I mean, like I said, we could easily have probably an all-day workshop talking about
we could
mindset stuff for sure. But since we have to wrap up this episode, I'm going to let you close today's show with your final thoughts.
Oh, you're amazing. And thank you to all the listeners and viewers as well. And I love the opportunity to connect with people like you that are swimming in the same pond. And we've got these amazing ideas and desires to make a big impact in the world. So thank you. So I want to leave everybody with this final thought, and it's my 6-word story. I'm huge on storytelling. When you get to know me, you're going to know that stories are the way to actually move an audience and to move people. It's good to know facts, but it's all about knowing the stories and being able to share stories in a world-class manner. So my 6-word story that really sums up a lot of my messages and what I want for all of you is this: think big, say yes, and take action. Right? Think big, say yes, and take action. When you're able to think big, like bigger, and then when you get there, go like 10 times bigger, because it's not big enough for you. It's not big enough for what you deserve. Think big. And then when those scary opportunities show up, right, you've got to have the courage to say yes. Say yes, say yes, say yes. And then you just got to move your feet, move your mouth, share your passion, be in action, and magic and miracles will open up for you. And that's what I want for every single one of your listeners and viewers.
That's the winning formula. Awesome. I love it. All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you, Clint. Thank you, everyone. This has been absolutely fantastic. Please do yourself a favor and grab Clinton's gift. And until next time, have a fantastic day.